Greetings all and welcome to We Have Ways Fest 2025 and another episode of Chieftain Interviews a Random Person from YouTube. And I found a rather famous lad, Mr. David Willey, formerly of the Tank Museum, now, what's the name of your show? I can't remember. It's Waffles On.
David Willey
Waffles On.
That's
there you go.
what it's called anyway.
All right. First question. Your dog, Finn.
Right.
Is a British tanker having a dog named Finn the same as an American tanker having a dog named Sabo?
Number one, I hate to tell you, I was never a tanker. Okay, so I just want to clear that one up. I'm always very keen on that sort of bit. But Finn, as in, yes, Finn's stabilised round, etc. No, it's actually, there's a graveyard not too far, and there was a First World War guy who'd come back, and his name was Farquhar and Finleymore. Okay. So I just thought, what a great name. So you've got to call your dog that. So actually, and that's shortened to Finn, so hence Finn.
And how long have you had the dog?
So I think he's about 11 and a half now, which, again, for those of you who are dogs owners, there's a certain point in the eye. It's getting a bit creaky,
getting a bit old,
like I am, a bit whatever, and he's had a couple of cruciate ligament operations. He's slowing down a bit, getting a bit grey like I am. And you live in parallel, don't you? You become the older, grumpier person, just as the dog is. But, and my bottom lip will go in a moment. As soon as you start talking about what happens when, you're going to get another one, all those... Can't even think about it yet, so we move on quickly.
Fair enough. Okay, so you started off obviously doing, I believe it was the COVID era, you started doing your videos from your backyard.
Yeah.
And now that you've separated from the Tank Museum, you've continued doing these videos. But now you're no longer with the Tank Museum, you have a little bit more variety or freedom of action as to what subjects you wish to cover. Yeah,
and I've been entirely honest, it was just a bit of a go at something where someone, actually I ended up saying, oh, go on, do a so-and-so one. And it's everybody. I'm a sorry thing to say, but everyone seems to be on YouTube these days, don't they? Everyone's got an opinion or something like that, and if you can film it and load it up there. So the only thing I was doing is, I've just literally happened here 2 or 3 times where people have come over and remembered about, people were knocked sideways in COVID, I think, more than perhaps we realised at the time. Mm-hmm. And they remembered the fact, I was lucky, I had a dark garden, I had the dog, let's talk, let's make some content that can go out on behalf of the museum back then. Yeah. And people remember that, and they liked all that, and there was some sort of comfort in it. I think,
it's happened to me. I've got a lot of people say I helped get them through COVID.
And that idea of those things that way. So in a sense, it's just having a go. There's other areas I'm interested in. It's not just armour. I just did something on British paratroopers, Denison smocks, with another, the Airborne Assault Museum. This idea of actually there's myths, there's things of interest. Things that, if I'm fascinated, because that's what I used to think at the Tank Museum, if there was something I could understand, I'm not that stupid, but I'm not that bright, if I can understand it and explain that to someone else, then I think we're getting somewhere.
Yeah, it's one of the tricks. It's not just you got to be a historian. You got to be capable of transmitting the information in a manner that people can understand it and read it. And
you'll see here at a festival like this, there's so many areas that you'd think to yourself, good God, I didn't know that. Did you know this one? Come and see. Yeah. And that feeling of trying to share an interest, or if you've suddenly learned something. I'm just going to stop you a second because I've just got to tell you this one.
All right.
British Postal Service in World War II for the military.
Okay.
They go up to Montgomery and say, we're going to have to hiatus, a gap for the D-Day period.
All right.
Montgomery says no. He knows from North Africa and Italy how important mail was. So he insists that they organise something. There is a unit that arrives on D+1, drives into the field that they've been allocated pre-D-Day on the map. Mm-hmm. They drive in there and the 2 mail bags of their mail are waiting for them in that field. And when I learned things like that, so by September of 44, if you posted a letter in Britain to a soldier in the British Liberation Army, 2.5 days on average to get to them.
To get there.
We don't have that postal service in Britain today in peacetime. Yeah? So I just think, when I learn things like that, I just want to tell people, like I've just had to shut you up and tell you, you know what I mean? Because I find those things absolutely fascinating. And of course, when I was at the museum, I just also, we were teaching the next generation of soldiers about issues, which are, we're going to face all these things again.
Yeah.
and how do we address them? What were their issues? How did they see the importance? Because we don't have to do it all with a completely blank piece of paper. The history tells us things or gives us suggestions, and that to me is a brilliant one, that idea of morale.
I'm assuming that in the British Army is the same in the US, is that as part of tank crew training, you will be put through the museum.
We do.
Who does the actual course of instruction when the recruits are going through?
This is where, again, it depends on the NCOs and the instructors. Mm-hmm. We would present.
Okay.
We would have sometimes special topics that would be, like obviously because we had the Ukrainians coming through doing training, they'd feed us information, we'd feed back. British Army, I don't know what it's like in the American Army, typically lots of very good information. Getting it to the ground is quite hard work. So it tends to get stuck in places. Yeah. So we were in a very fortunate position that we could actually pass on information that was given directly to us. Have you heard what they're doing this week? Have you thought about using an electric bicycle? Yeah. What's that, the fact that the Ukrainians were saying if they've got two runners, one goes that way, one goes that way. Simple stuff from back in World War I, but that's how they've learned lessons, things. So you can pass those things on. And what I always love is just seeing someone in the group registering that could be of use to them. Simple things, model making, make models. Great for recognition. Oh, yeah. If you've made a model, you know about the wheel spacing. You know about where the muzzle brake is. So we were saying, with every group, please, one of them, encourage them to make models, do it that way.
So another example, I've always been trying to find out an answer. So you remember the Vietnam gun trucks where you basically just armor the side out of a 5-ton caliber 50, or you put an M113 body on your truck. I'm in Iraq, I'm driving convoys, and I see HEMTs with caliber 50s. Yeah. I'm trying for the life of me to find anything definitive. Was this a case of convergent evolution, just somebody had a completely independent idea, or was this some grizzled old Chief Warrant Officer 5 who goes back in his day, so back 40 years ago, we used to do this?
Well, one of the things that gets me is where we used to have engineers, designers come in and they say, we've got this great idea of, and then you'd say, come and have a look at this.
Yeah.
There's always that time where things have been tried before. And I'd also say as well, because it didn't work back then, you've got new materials now. There's other ways you might be able to approach this, but look at their ideas that might not have worked then, that you might be able to do. And simple things as well, that when the German 223 armoured car will come in a while, it's got cage over the top. In Vietnam, chain link fencing put over, to trap RPG grenades. Yeah. World War I, the very first tank attack, they ended up putting chicken wire over a little wooden framework on the top because they're worried about the
hand
grenade coming on the top. So these things that everyone's thinking, not necessarily it's new, but come on, we thought of those ideas. Could we look at that again? If we're talking urban, how do we do our little cage so somebody can't drop that straight into our hatch or something? So I find all that a bit fascinating. So for the museum, that was important, I would argue, for the next generation of soldiers. Now, what I'm doing at home, it's just if I find something interesting and I think
maybe somebody else will know.
Let's have a go.
I don't know if have you ever followed the Why We Fight podcast by Mother of Tanks?
I don't.
So that it's a fantastic podcast here. She's I think now an Air Force analyst or something like that. But she has guests in that cover every sort of imaginable concept that is required for fighting World War II. From some famous stuff like the Monuments Men or the actions of the 17th Field Laundry Battalion in Bataan or something completely obscure. And you look at how much is in there. I mean, you got there's geospatial or geointelligence engineers. There's a unit of those. These guys, they basically just make maps and they do terrain analysis. And there's a whole unit of them. But whoever thinks they've got a whole unit of that. And so she's very, very good at finding those things and just some of them are incredibly niche.
And that's what you see here. These books on areas. Some years ago, British newspaper journalist Max Hastings writes books on the history, etc. Now, military history on the whole. He said why we're so fascinated with World War I, World War II especially, is because we're constantly finding out more things because it was so
big.
And so many things going on, and that I do find, hence my line about the post thing. Why do I find that fascinating? But it's to me, I just think there's another one of those nuggets, someone thought that through thought the easy option was to say no, like the Germans with Stalingrad, they say you're not going to get any mail, we can't afford to do all this stuff. But someone said, like Montgomery, again, that idea about, we loathe him and love him at the same time sometimes, but he's that person who says, no, you're going to find a way of doing that because that's important for morale, and he understands that's so important. So I just find all these things, and there's so many areas where we can still find more information, we still get something. And also for me as well, sometimes it's been staring me in the face, or you go back to things like some of the official histories, they're brilliant, they're superb, there's wonderful information.
But you didn't have time to read them back there.
We never read them. No one ever read them, did we? They go on the shelf. It's like all these official reports after conflicts. Most militaries do really good analysis, but no one ever goes near them. They go on the shelf and they're forgotten.
I remember digging through the archives in DC. It's kind of like I'm looking at this, as like the naming document for, oh crap, the Americans actually did officially name their tanks. It's kind of like I may be the first person in 60 years to look at this piece of document.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that out there. So do you still actually go off and do independent research, or you just...
At the moment, if I'm honest, what I've been doing so far, but yes, in one way, but I've been going to get. The phrase I'd probably use is get someone else to tell me that story. Mm-hmm. Because if with the Airborne Forces Museum talking about Denison smocks, I did something on why the British Army in the mid-2000s or 2015, I think it was, we changed our camouflage pattern from destructive pattern material to
multicam.
Multicam. And that idea of doing that got a number of views, including the guy who saw it through, etc. So the Airborne Forces on, because I mentioned the fact that we have a problem in Britain that there's this guy who we all attribute the Denison smock, what British paratroopers, loads of guys here
wearing it,
all wear them. It's a guy who was working with the camouflage unit with Oliver Messel, it's in all the books and everything else. No, he's not. There's no captain or Major Denison we can find who's got anything to do with this. And I knew that, just happened to mention it in this thing, and the Airborne Forces guy said, look, we've been telling a different story for a number of years now, come up and film. So I love the idea of if I can take however small or big that audience
and make it bigger
and point it at some of these topics with the people, because the guy there, John Baker, has done a lot of research on this. It's great seeing original drawings of them actually, sketching out what they wanted. Turns out it was denim smock. Okay, and we had denims in Britain. Do you see what I mean? So, and that is so logical, answers it all, and they've known that for quite some time. But it's how do we let everyone know? So all the guys walking around here, I say, do you know the story about this? Some of them do, some don't.
I have sometimes felt like I'm shouting into the void.
Yeah, so I think that one, it's thing. So what I'd love the idea of, especially with British regimental and corps museums, they've got so many lovely stories, items, great storytellers. I would love to be a bit of a catalyst, to be able to doing almost like this, to say, tell us about this one, and then get them to say, do you see this object? And that's what gets me every time, a really uninspiring little bit of metal or a bit of a jacket or something else. They tell you the story and wow, we're suddenly moved, aren't we? We're taken somewhere by that. And that's where I think, museums or owners as well with things like these wonderful bits of kit and everything, when they get enthusing, you buy into it. You know what I mean? Because they're suddenly
so
they can tell you these things.
It,
wow, that's what gets me about all this sort of stuff.
So where are you going to go next? I mean, are you going to stick on the army side, or are you going to completely diverge?
If I was honest, sometimes it's what I think I've read or somebody wants to talk to you about, or like even here I'm doing a bit of commentary on things and that, but you start talking to someone and they come out with a story about why. There's lots of privately owned vehicles here, so we always think of those museum ones that way, but the private owners sometimes, why they opened the barn door and there was a rusty Jeep at the back. Other ones, this is what Grandad served in, and their bottom lip starts going, they want to tell you about his story, what they did and why he's doing that now, or just a simple one, I made a model and now I'm going to buy the real one,
Yeah, so there's a Polish guy in, I don't know if you saw it, Marislav, he's got a Polish armour collection in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania.
Okay. Yeah.
And his Polish armour collection probably better than anything in Poland.
Right.
And he said, I started off doing 1 to 35th scale models, and now I'm doing 1 to 1 scale models.
And I find that bit as well really interesting, because again, there's always these stories, and I also think as well it's a bit of an inspiration thing, because everyone's got an interest somewhere, everyone's got something, and I also think as well, for the idea of the collector, we need to encourage another generation, because otherwise...
Well, that just comes down to dollars. I mean,
Exactly
much so I would
that.
love to own an M3 Scout car, I can't afford one and don't know have a place to
over
park
here,
it.
people used to entry level was a Jeep or a Land Rover. Even they're a bit too expensive, for a teenager now. So, but I was interested to see, loads of some of the agricultural shows. Loads of people now collecting tractors.
Yeah.
And that's still a relatively cheaper way of getting into automotive history and things. So, but anyway, so I think encouraging that next lot and finding areas where they can start. There's always something you can collect. It doesn't have to be a really expensive World War II Nazi memorabilia. You can go and buy a much more, camouflages in all the charity shops or thrift shops. Go and buy yourself start the collection that way or something.
So a little bit of plugging. Do you have a Patreon?
Do I have Patreon? I think I do.
You think you do? That's not your department.
All I do know is I'm told I must ask people to subscribe. So if you do go and find whatever it's called, David Willey Waffles On, apparently I need subscribers. So that's what you have to do apparently. So.
Have you a Facebook page or a Twitter feed?
I think there is one somewhere.
Well, you do have a Twitter feed because I found you on the Twitter feed. Yeah.
Someone's doing that. Yeah. So yes. So, God, I sound idiotic.
Yeah. Have you kids of your own?
No, I don't. I've got just a dog.
Just a dog? Okay, so you're not going to get the dog into tanks?
No. It's I'm all right that way. The only other one I was trying to encourage people is someone put a comment about they're too old to get another dog, and I get an older dog. That was my thing. You sort of think that way. So, but we're standing here. I don't know if you noticed, ladies and gentlemen, but the wind's going up. It's just we're going to have a massive thunderstorm in about a couple of minutes' time. So you see what I mean? It's going to come over.
Joy. Okay, I guess we'll cut it down soon enough. What does David Willey do for his time off? What do you enjoy yourself?
Good question. I was making jam last weekend, so I was blackberry picking and that. I do like cooking. I probably drink too much, or that age where suddenly you're waiting for it to 12 o'clock so you can open something or whatever. I go to bed early. I like going to bed early and reading a book. That's such a pleasure, is getting tucked up in bed at about 8 o'clock with a book. God, I sound such a sad man, don't I, sort of thing. I'm trying to sort out and get rid of stuff now. I used to be a bit of a hoarder, collector of books.
I can relate.
Books, yeah. So now I'm trying to thin things out, and I'm starting to go through the attic, because what the ethics were, you don't collect in the area, you are a professional curator. So back in the 80s, 90s, when I used to look after fine art, I used to buy militaria.
Okay.
So that all went in the attic. My problem is now trying to get it down, sorting out, have the rats eaten it, the moths gone through it, and maybe do a video on some of the stuff, when you find things. So I'm just trying to get rid of stuff. So that's the other one, is too much junk. Suddenly realising the dog's got about that much room in the middle of the floor of the living room, because boxes
are everywhere.
Books piled up, that's collapsed. Anyway. So still trying to get my life in order, as it were.
All right. Well, let's head for shelter then before the heavens open up. All right, Dave, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much. Good to meet you. Cheers then. Thank you.